Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are dismantling a centuries-old medical myth that has likely affected you or someone you know. For generations, the consensus on human joints was bleakly mechanical. Doctors viewed your knees and hips like tires on a car. The logic was that you drove them, you wore them down, and eventually, the tread ran out. This concept of wear and tear treated osteoarthritis as a simple arithmetic of friction over time. If you were an athlete, a manual laborer, or simply lived long enough, you were destined for the operating table to swap your biological bone for titanium and plastic. That paradigm has collapsed. As we stand here in early 2026, the narrative of joint health has shifted from replacement to regeneration. We are witnessing a biological renaissance where the word irreversible is being deleted from the orthopedic lexicon. The old model has been superseded by a nuanced understanding of inflammaging, cellular senescence, and metabolic signaling. We now know that cartilage does not simply rub away. It is actively degraded by rogue cellular signals, and more importantly, it can be coaxed to grow back. In this episode, we are doing a comprehensive deep dive into the state of cartilage regeneration today. We will explore the cutting-edge breakthroughs of 2025, including the Stanford gerozyme discovery that stunned the scientific world, and the practical biohacking protocols that forward-thinking patients are using right now. To understand the magnitude of the new solutions, we must first appreciate the severity of the problem and why cartilage has historically failed to heal. Hyaline cartilage is the glistening, white, Teflon-like substance that caps our bone ends. It is an evolutionary marvel, but it is also a physiological paradox. Unlike almost every other tissue in the human body, cartilage is avascular, meaning it has no blood vessels. It is aneural, meaning it has no nerves, and it is alymphatic, meaning it has no drainage system. When you scratch your skin, blood rushes in, bringing platelets, growth factors, and immune cells to stitch the wound. When you damage cartilage, nothing happens. It sits in a biological silence. The cartilage cells, known as chondrocytes, are trapped in a dense prison of extracellular matrix, unable to migrate to the injury site. Furthermore, cartilage exists in a state of permanent hypoxia, or low oxygen. While this allows it to survive the crushing pressures of walking, it means its metabolic rate is glacial. It cannot rev up repair processes like muscle can. Historically, even if we injected stem cells into a joint, they often failed to penetrate the dense matrix composed of type 2 collagen and proteoglycans. They would float in the fluid and eventually die off. But by 2024, researchers confirmed that the primary driver of joint aging wasn't friction, but senescence. As chondrocytes age or suffer trauma, they turn into senescent cells. These are zombie cells that stop dividing but refuse to die. Worse, they begin secreting the SASP, or senescence-associated secretory phenotype. This is a toxic cocktail of inflammatory cytokines and enzymes that actively digest the healthy cartilage around them. One zombie cell infects its neighbors, turning the joint into a tissue-destroying environment. This explains why simply cleaning out a knee arthroscopically often failed, as it didn't remove the chemical drivers of the disease. However, the last 18 months have produced more progress in cartilage science than the previous 2 decades combined. Let's look at the Stanford breakdown regarding the blocking of 1,5-PGDH. In late 2025, researchers identified a protein called 1,5-PGDH as a master regulator of joint aging. It acts as a gerozyme, an aging enzyme. Its levels skyrocket in older joints, and its primary job is to break down prostaglandin E2. Historically, prostaglandins were viewed solely as inflammatory bad guys, which is why we take NSAIDs like ibuprofen. However, Stanford found that specific levels of prostaglandin E2 are actually critical for activating stem cells and tissue repair. By aggressively degrading this molecule, the gerozyme 1,5-PGDH shuts down the joint's natural repair machinery. Researchers developed a small molecule inhibitor to block this enzyme. When tested, the results were startling. The chondrocytes didn't just stop dying, they de-aged. They reverted to a more youthful state and began synthesizing new, functional hyaline cartilage without the addition of external stem cells. As of early 2026, oral versions of this inhibitor are entering advanced trials. Parallel to this, we have seen the rise of gene therapy, specifically GNSC001. Osteoarthritis is driven by the inflammatory molecule interleukin-1. Our bodies naturally produce a blocker for this, called IL-1Ra, but arthritic joints don't make enough. GNSC001 is a gene therapy vector injected directly into the knee. It acts as a biofactory, infecting the synovial cells and programming them to continuously pump out high levels of the blocker IL-1Ra. Instead of taking a daily pill that might harm your gut, your knee becomes its own pharmacy, producing its own anti-inflammatory drug 24/7 for years. Another massive leap has been in delivery systems, specifically smart hydrogels. A collaboration between researchers in China and Harvard solved the problem of drugs clearing out of the knee too quickly. They created temperature-sensitive hydrogels that are liquid in the syringe but turn into a gel inside the warm joint. This gel delivers a 1-2 punch. First, it releases dexamethasone rapidly to kill inflammation. Then, over 40 days, it slowly releases cartigenin, a small molecule that induces stem cells to become cartilage. This mimics the body's natural healing timeline. Now, let's move to the rise of cell-free medicine. For years, mesenchymal stem cells were the gold standard, but they had issues with survival and size. In 2026, the industry has pivoted to exosomes. Exosomes are nano-sized vesicles secreted by stem cells. Think of them as the email of the cell. They contain mRNA and growth factors that tell recipient cells what to do. Because they are nanoscopic, they can penetrate the dense cartilage matrix that blocks whole cells. They act as instruction manuals, telling your own cartilage to heal itself. Clinics are now using exosomes derived from umbilical cord tissue, often primed in labs under low oxygen conditions, to pack them with extra repair factors. While expensive, the efficacy data suggests they are vastly superior to older therapies like PRP. But you do not need to wait for FDA approval of gene therapies to start regenerating your joints. The biohacking and sports medicine communities have developed robust protocols actionable right now. Let's talk about peptide therapy, often called the Wolverine stack. The cornerstone is BPC-157, or body protection compound. Derived from a stomach protein, it fundamentally alters the nitric oxide pathway and drives angiogenesis, or new blood vessel formation, in the soft tissues supporting the joint. While cartilage itself is avascular, the subchondral bone and synovium rely on blood flow. Users often inject 500 micrograms subcutaneously near the injury. It is frequently paired with TB500, a synthetic version of thymosin beta-4. This is an actin-binding protein that keeps cells fluid and mobile, allowing them to migrate faster to the site of injury. Another major player is pentosan polysulfate, or PPS. Originally a bladder drug, it has gained cult status as an arthritis buster. It inhibits NF-κB, the master switch of inflammation, and blocks enzymes that degrade cartilage. Data suggests it can actually clear bone marrow edema, a primary source of deep arthritic pain. Beyond injections, we have the nutraceutical stack. Forget generic glucosamine. The 2026 standard involves senolytics like fisetin. Based on Mayo Clinic protocols, biohackers use high-dose fisetin for 2 or 3 days consecutively, once a month. This hit-and-run dosing is designed to flush out those senescent zombie cells we discussed earlier. We also see the use of undenatured type 2 collagen, or UC2. This works via oral tolerance. By introducing tiny amounts of intact collagen to the gut immune system, it trains T regulatory cells to stop attacking the collagen in your knees, turning off the autoimmune component of the disease. Mechanical synergy is also critical. The standard of care in high-end clinics is now the PRP plus shockwave combo. High-energy sound waves are blasted into the joint to create microtrauma and increase cell permeability. Immediately after, platelet-rich plasma is injected. The shockwave effectively tills the soil so the PRP fertilizer can be absorbed significantly better. For exercise, blood flow restriction or BFR training is essential. Cartilage needs compression to pump nutrients in, but heavy weights hurt. BFR bans trap lactate and growth hormone in the limb, allowing you to exercise with very light weights while getting the hormonal response of heavy lifting. It pumps synovial fluid through the cartilage defect without the shearing force that causes damage. For patients with bone-on-bone defects where no cartilage remains, we look to tissue engineering. The holy grail has been 3D bioprinting. A recent breakthrough involved printing a triphasic scaffold. The bottom layer is a ceramic polymer mix that integrates with bone. The middle is a barrier to stop blood vessels. The top is a soft hydrogel loaded with chondrocytes. Surgeons can now scan a defect and print a custom plug to press fit into the knee. There is also the technique of nasal chondrocyte harvesting. It turns out the cartilage in your nose is distinct and originates from the neural crest. It is far more regenerative than knee cartilage. Surgeons can take a tiny biopsy from the nose, grow the cells, and implant them into the knee, where they grow durable hyaline cartilage that resists inflammation. To truly appreciate why these breakthroughs work, we need to briefly touch on the molecular mechanics. In a healthy joint, there is a balance between transforming growth factor beta and bone morphogenetic proteins, specifically BMP7. BMP7 is the hero that directs stem cells to become high-quality hyaline cartilage. As we age, we lose receptors for BMP7 and become oversensitive to TGF-beta, which leads to scar tissue. Modern therapies are now being doped with blockers to inhibit the fibrosis pathway while amplifying the BMP signal. Additionally, we look at the hypoxia-inducible factor, or HIF-1 alpha. Cartilage loves low oxygen. When inflammation brings too much oxygen via chaotic blood vessels, it kills cartilage cells. Emerging therapies use iron chelators to chemically mimic hypoxia, tricking stem cells into thinking they are in a low-oxygen environment, which triggers them to turn into robust cartilage. Looking at the economics. The shift from joint replacement to joint preservation is a multi-billion-dollar disruption. The growth rate of total knee replacements is slowing as younger patients opt for biological bridging. Insurance carriers are beginning to cover these procedures, realizing that a $5,000 regenerative procedure is cheaper than a $50,000 surgery. The patient of the future is an active participant. They monitor joint health with sensors, utilize peptides, and prioritize anti-inflammatory nutrition. The cartilage crisis of the early 21st century is being solved. We are learning that the body is not a machine that wears out, but a dynamic system that constantly renews. The key is to remove the roadblocks like senescence and inflammation, and provide the fuel, such as growth factors and scaffolds. The future of your joints is not metal, it is you. Thanks for listening to Fun Facts Online.